The night I found out, my house was quiet in a way that felt wrong. Not peaceful, just empty. The kind of quiet that makes you hear your own breathing too clearly. I was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone without really reading anything, when a message popped up on my screen. It was not meant for me. One line, just one careless line, and in that moment, I felt something inside my chest sink, slow and heavy, like a stone dropped into deep water. I read it again, then again. My fingers went cold, my mouth went dry. I remember whispering, "No, this can't be right," even though no one was there to hear me. Mothers know their children, or at least we believe we do. That belief cracked right there at my kitchen table, under a weak yellow light, while the rest of the world slept peacefully. Welcome to Stories Her Heart Holds. If you believe some truths take years to surface, subscribe to this channel. This is not an easy story to tell, but it is a real one, and it begins long before that message ever reached my phone. My daughter was always the strong one. Even as a child, she did not need much from me. She tied her own shoes early, she packed her own lunch, she hated being fussed over. When she left for college, she hugged me tight, but only for a second, like she did not want me to see the fear behind her smile. "I'll be fine, Mom," she said. "You raised me right." I held on to those words for years. College changed her, but I told myself that was normal. She sounded older on the phone, busier, more confident. She called less, but when she did, she always said the same things. Classes were hard, she was tired, she had everything under control. And I believed her, because believing her was easier than worrying every night. There were signs. I see them now. Mothers always do, after the damage is done. She stopped coming home as often. When she did, she wore baggy sweatshirts, even in warm weather. She avoided mirrors. She hugged me differently, quick, careful, like she was protecting something fragile between us. Once, during a video call, I noticed she kept adjusting the camera. Every time I asked how she was really doing, she smiled and changed the subject. I told myself I was being dramatic. I told myself not to be that mother, the one who imagines problems where there are none. But late at night, after hanging up, I would sit on the edge of my bed and feel that quiet fear creep in. The fear you cannot name, the fear that something important is happening in your child's life and you are not part of it. I asked her once, gently, "Are you okay, sweetheart? You know you can tell me anything." She laughed, not a real laugh. "Mom, please, I'm just busy. College is stressful." And that was the end of it, or so I thought. That night at the kitchen table, the message replayed in my head like a broken record. I won't say exactly what it said yet, not because I want to be dramatic, but because that moment deserves respect. It was not just information. It was a betrayal of trust wrapped in fear, silence, and love that had nowhere to go. I remember standing up and walking to the sink, gripping the counter like I might fall. My reflection in the window looked older than I remembered. My hands were shaking. I wanted to call her immediately. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pretend I had never seen that message. Instead, I sat back down. I thought about all the times she said she was fine, all the times I believed her. I wondered if she had ever picked up the phone wanting to tell me, then put it back down. I wondered if she cried alone in a dorm room, convinced that keeping this secret was the only way to survive. That night, I did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling and replayed every memory of her childhood. Her first day of school, her scraped knees, the night she had a fever and slept on my chest because it was the only way she would calm down. I thought about how fiercely I had promised to protect her, and how far away she felt now. By morning, I had decided something important. I would not confront her yet, not with anger, not with panic. I needed to understand what she was carrying before I added my own weight to it. Love does not always rush in. Sometimes love waits. The next few days were torture. Every text from her made my heart jump. Every "love you, Mom" felt heavier than before. I noticed how carefully she chose her words, how she avoided talking about the future, how she asked more questions about my life, as if checking to see whether I was strong enough for what she was hiding. I told myself I already knew. I told myself she did not have to be afraid. But fear does strange things to mothers too. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of losing her trust forever, afraid that once the truth was spoken out loud, nothing between us would ever feel the same. And deep down, there was another fear I didn't want to admit, the fear that I had failed her somehow, that she hid this from me because I taught her to be strong, but not how to be vulnerable. So I waited. I watched. I listened. And with every passing day, the silence between us grew louder. I did not know then how far along she was. I did not know who else knew. I did not know how much she had already been through without me. All I knew was this: my daughter was carrying something life-changing, and she had chosen to carry it alone. That knowledge sat in my chest like a secret of my own, one that hurt just as much to keep. In the next part of this story, I will take you back to the moment when I realized this was not just a phase, not just stress, and not something that would quietly resolve itself, because some truths do not stay hidden forever. They find a way to be seen, whether we are ready or not. After that night, everything I saw felt different. The world had not changed, but my eyes had. Every word from my daughter now carried weight. Every pause on the phone felt longer. Every laugh sounded practiced, like something learned instead of felt. I started paying closer attention to who she had become in college, not the version she showed online, not the smiling photos with friends or the captions that said she was living her best life. I watched the small things, the way she answered questions too quickly, the way she never complained anymore, even when she clearly should have. My daughter had always been honest with me, sometimes painfully so. Silence was new. And silence is never empty. She used to call me when she was overwhelmed, about exams, about roommates, about boys who were not worth her time. Now she called only to reassure me. "Everything's good, Mom. Don't worry about me, I've got it handled." Handled. That word stayed with me. I remembered the last time I visited her campus. It was months earlier. I had been excited, nervous, proud. I brought groceries, her favorite snacks, the kind of things mothers bring when they do not know how else to help anymore. She hugged me at the door, quick again, careful again. Her room was clean, almost too clean. No clutter, no mess, like she was hiding more than laundry. We went out to eat and she barely touched her food. She said she was not hungry. I joked that college kids lived on caffeine and stress anyway. She smiled, but her eyes stayed distant. When I reached across the table to hold her hand, she pulled back just slightly, like she had forgotten how. That moment came rushing back now, sharp and clear. I wondered how many clues I had laughed away, how many times I had chosen comfort over curiosity. After the message, I stopped asking questions that could corner her. Instead, I asked questions that left space. How are you sleeping? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you happy? She always answered yes, always. One afternoon, she called me out of the blue. That alone made my heart jump. She talked about a class she loved, a professor who inspired her, plans she had for the next semester. She sounded almost like herself again. For a moment, I let myself believe I was wrong, that the message meant something else, that I was reading fear into nothing. Then she said, "Mom, can I ask you something?" I froze. "Of course," I said, keeping my voice steady. "What would you do if I disappointed you?" The air left my lungs. I wanted to tell her she could never disappoint me. I wanted to say love does not work that way. But something stopped me. This was not a hypothetical question. This was a test, and she was listening carefully. "I'd still be your mom," I said. "I'd still love you." There was a pause on the other end, long enough for me to hear her breathing change. "Okay," she whispered. "I just wanted to know." She changed the subject right after that. But I did not forget the way her voice cracked when she said okay. I did not forget how small she sounded. That night, I cried quietly in my bedroom, not because I was angry, not because I felt betrayed. I cried because my daughter was afraid of me, and that hurt more than any secret ever could. I started wondering who else knew. Her friends? A boyfriend? A counselor? I imagined her surrounded by people who were helping her make decisions I was not part of. I imagined her sitting in waiting rooms alone, making adult choices without a hand to hold, and that image broke something inside me. Still, I stayed silent. I told myself there was a reason she hadn't told me yet, that timing mattered, that trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. I wanted her to come to me on her own, not because she was caught, but because she felt safe. Weeks passed like this, slow, heavy. Every day felt like walking through fog. I lived two lives at once. In one, I was a normal mother, talking about work, weather, recipes. In the other, I was holding a truth so fragile I was afraid to breathe too loudly around it. Then came the day she visited home unexpectedly. She stood in the doorway with a bag over her shoulder, smiling like she always did, but something about her body language was different. Tired, guarded. She moved carefully, like every step required thought. When she hugged me, I felt it, not with my eyes, with my arms. There was no mistaking it anymore. I stepped back and looked at her, really looked at her. She avoided my gaze. We spent the day together like strangers pretending to be family. We cooked, we talked, we laughed in the right places, but the truth sat between us at the table, unspoken, heavy as a third person in the room. That night, after she went to bed, I stood outside her door for a long time. My hand hovered near the handle. I almost went in, almost said her name, almost asked the question that would change everything. I did not, because once a mother asks, there's no going back. Once the truth is spoken, it cannot be tucked away again, and I was not sure either of us was ready. The next morning, she left early, said she had to get back for an exam. Another quick hug, another smile that did not reach her eyes. As her car disappeared down the street, I felt a deep, aching certainty settle in my bones. This secret was running out of time. The truth did not arrive in one loud moment. It crept in quietly, the way heartbreak often does. Not with shouting, not with tears, but with a small detail that refused to leave my mind. It was a picture. Someone had tagged my daughter in a group photo online. I almost scrolled past it. Almost. College kids post everything, and most of it means nothing. But this time, my thumb stopped. She was standing near the back, half turned away from the camera. Oversized hoodie, arms folded tightly across her chest. Her smile looked careful, like it had been placed there for the photo and would be removed right after. I stared longer than I should have. There it was again, that shape, that posture, that way of standing as if she were trying to disappear without leaving. I felt my stomach tighten. I zoomed in, then hated myself for doing it. Mothers should not have to search for proof. They should be trusted with truth. I put my phone down and told myself to stop. I told myself I was imagining things. But once a thought takes root, it does not leave quietly. It grows. Later that day, I called her. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, Mom." Her voice sounded light, too light. "How are you feeling?" I asked. "Fine," she said quickly. "Why?" "No reason," I replied. "You just sound tired." There was a pause, just a breath. Then, "Yeah, school's been a lot." We talked for a few minutes about nothing important. I did not mention the photo. I did not mention my fear. But something shifted during that call. She became more careful with her words, like she sensed I was getting closer to something she was not ready to give. That night, I pulled out old photos of her, from when she was little, from high school, from her first day of college. I lined them up on the table, as if they might explain how we ended up here, how a mother and daughter could love each other so deeply and still feel so far apart. I asked myself hard questions. Had I been too strict, too soft, too focused on making her independent? Did I teach her that asking for help was weakness? The guilt came in waves. The next clue came from a place I did not expect, a casual comment from a relative. "She's not coming home for the holidays, right?" they asked. "I heard she's not traveling much these days." Not traveling. My heart started racing. When I asked my daughter about it later, she brushed it off, said she was saving money, said travel was exhausting, said she had too much work. Her answers were smooth, practiced, but they did not feel true. I began to realize something painful. She had rehearsed these conversations. She had planned her lies carefully, not to hurt me, but to survive, and that made everything worse. One evening, I sat alone in my car outside the grocery store and cried. Not loudly, just tears sliding down my face as people walked past, unaware that my world was quietly cracking open. I felt helpless. Watching your child struggle from a distance is a special kind of pain. Watching them hide that struggle from you is even worse. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to say, "I know." I wanted to tell her she was not alone. But a small voice inside me warned me that if I pushed too soon, she might pull away forever. So I waited again, but the waiting started to feel wrong, heavy, like I was choosing my comfort over her safety. Mothers are supposed to protect, even when it is uncomfortable, especially then. The final sign came during another video call. She was sitting on her bed, the camera angled too high. She kept shifting, adjusting pillows behind her back. At one point, she winced slightly, then forced a smile. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, "just tired." I watched her eyes flick away from the screen. I watched her hand rest protectively over her stomach for half a second before she caught herself. That was it. There are moments in a mother's life when instinct overrides fear. This was one of them. I took a breath. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "is there something you're not telling me?" The silence that followed was different from all the others. It was heavy, final. I could hear her breathing. I could hear my own heart pounding. "No," she said, but her voice broke. I closed my eyes. I did not push further, not yet. But in that moment, I knew for certain. There was no more doubt, no more guessing. The truth was standing between us, waiting for one of us to be brave enough to speak it out loud. I hung up the call and sat there for a long time, staring at my dark reflection in the screen. The waiting was almost over, whether I was ready or not. I did not plan the conversation. I did not rehearse my words in the mirror or write anything down. If I had, I might have talked myself out of it. Sometimes the hardest conversations happen because your heart is tired of carrying the weight alone. I called her the next evening. She answered right away, which surprised me. Her voice was quiet, guarded, like she already knew why I was calling. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." I kept my tone calm, normal, or at least I tried to. We talked for a minute about nothing again. The weather, her classes, the kind of small talk people use when they are standing at the edge of something painful and pretending not to see it. Then I stopped. "I need to ask you something," I said. She did not answer, but she did not hang up either. I took a breath. "And I need you to listen to the whole question before you answer." Another pause. "Okay." My hands were shaking, but my voice stayed steady. "Is there anything going on in your life right now that you are carrying by yourself because you're afraid to tell me?" The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. I could hear faint noises, a chair moving, fabric shifting. Then her breath hitched. "No," she said. One word, soft, fragile, but it was not the truth. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I did not say I knew. I simply said, "I'm not asking because I'm angry. I'm asking because I love you." That was when she started crying. Not loudly, not all at once, just quiet, broken sobs she was clearly trying to hide. It felt wrong to be so far away while my daughter fell apart. Every part of me wanted to reach through the phone and hold her. "I didn't want to disappoint you," she finally whispered. Those words landed harder than any confession ever could. I swallowed. "You could never disappoint me." She laughed weakly through her tears. "That's easy for you to say." We sat there like that for a moment, breathing, waiting. The truth was right there, pressing against her chest, begging to be let out. I could feel it. I think she could too. "I don't know how to say it," she said. "You don't have to say it perfectly, just say it honestly." The line went quiet again. Then she said it. Not all at once, not clearly, just enough. "Mom, I'm pregnant." The world did not explode. The room did not spin. What I felt instead was a deep, aching stillness, like everything inside me went silent at the same time. "How far along?" I asked gently. She hesitated. "I didn't know at first," she said quickly. "I thought it was stress, then I was scared, then time just kept moving." That answer told me more than numbers ever could. I closed my eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice shook. "Because I was supposed to be smart. I was supposed to do everything right, and I didn't want you to look at me differently." That was the moment my heart broke. Not because she was pregnant, but because she thought love had conditions. I wanted to ask 100 questions about the father, about her plans, about her health, about everything I had missed. But I stopped myself. This was not the time for interrogation. This was the time for safety. "Are you okay?" I asked instead. She nodded, then remembered I could not see her. Yes, I think so. I'm proud of you for telling me. She cried harder then, like she had been holding her breath for months and finally let it out. We talked for a long time after that, about fear, about shame, about how lonely it feels to make adult decisions when you still feel like a child. She kept waiting for the right moment to tell me, then there were too many wrong moments stacked on top of each other. I thought if I waited long enough, she said, maybe it would get easier. It never does. When we hung up, I sat there in the dark, my phone still in my hand. My daughter was pregnant. My baby was about to have a baby. The truth was finally out, but instead of relief, I felt something else settle in. Worry. Because now that I knew, I also knew this was only the beginning. There were still things she was not telling me, choices already made, consequences already in motion, and I could feel it in my bones. After that call, I sat very still. My house felt different now, like the walls had heard something they could not forget. I kept thinking about her voice, how small it sounded when she said the word pregnant, like she was handing me something fragile and hoping I would not drop it. We did not talk the next day, not because we were angry, but because we were both trying to breathe again. When she finally called, her voice was calmer, tired but calmer. That scared me more than the crying had. Calm often comes after decisions have already been made. "Mom," she said, "there's more I need to tell you." I closed my eyes. "Okay, I'm listening." She took a deep breath. I could hear it clearly. "I didn't just hide it from you," she said. "I hid it from almost everyone." Almost. That one word opened a door I was not ready to walk through. "Who knows?" I asked gently. She named a few people, a close friend, a roommate, a campus counselor, people who had seen her when she was scared, people who had helped her in ways I had not. Each name felt like a quiet cut. "I didn't tell you because once I did," she said, "it would be real." It was already real, but I understood what she meant. Telling me meant stepping out of hiding. It meant facing the future instead of delaying it. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "I'm farther along than you think." I did not ask how far. Not yet. I was afraid of the answer. "I kept thinking I had more time," she continued. "Then one day I didn't." That was when the fear hit me fully. Not anger, not disappointment. Fear. For her health, for her safety, for all the appointments she had gone to without me. All the moments she had sat alone in waiting rooms, pretending she was strong enough to carry everything by herself. "Are you getting care?" I asked. "Yes," she said quickly. "I promise, I wouldn't risk that." I believed her, but belief did not erase the ache in my chest. Then came the question I had been avoiding. "Do I need to know about the father?" Her silence answered before her words did. "He knows," she said finally, "but he's not really here." Not here. I did not push her to explain. I already knew what that meant. I had lived long enough to understand that sometimes people disappear when responsibility shows up. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," she said, almost pleading. "I just need you not to hate me." That sentence hurt more than anything else she had said. "I don't hate you," I replied. "I could never hate you." "But you are disappointed." She paused. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say no, but honesty mattered now more than comfort. "I'm sad that you felt you had to go through this alone," I said. "That's what hurts." She was quiet for a long moment. "I didn't want to be a burden," she whispered. I felt tears fill my eyes. Children learn that word somewhere, burden, and once they do, it changes how they ask for help forever. "You were never a burden," I said. "Not then, not now." She told me then about the nights she barely slept, the sickness she hid during classes, the panic attacks she blamed on stress, the way she wore loose clothes and stayed in the background, hoping no one would notice her body changing. "I kept thinking," she said, "if I just get through this week, I'll figure it out next week." Weeks turned into months. She had made plans, some small, some big, some she was still unsure about, and that scared me too, because plans made in fear are heavy to carry alone. When the call ended, I felt the weight of everything she had shared settle deep inside me. I wanted to drive to her campus that night. I wanted to take control. I wanted to make it all easier. But this was not my story to control. It was my story to support. Still, there was something she had not told me yet. I could feel it. The way she rushed past certain details, the way her voice changed when the future came up. And I knew, without a doubt, that the hardest part of this was still coming. After that call, I tried to act normal. I went to work, I cooked dinner, I answered messages, but nothing felt normal anymore. My thoughts were always with her. I kept picturing my daughter walking across campus, carrying books in one hand and fear in the other. We talked more often now, short calls, long silences. Sometimes she would call just to hear my voice. Sometimes we would sit on the phone without saying much at all. I could tell she was tired, not just in her body, but in her soul. One night, she called me very late. "Mom," she said softly, "are you awake?" "Yes," I answered right away. I always was now. "I need to tell you something else," she said, "and I'm scared." My heart dropped. "Okay," I said, "I'm here." She took a long breath. "There was a time," she said slowly, "when I thought I could handle this by myself, completely. I did not like where this was going." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean," she said, "I almost didn't tell anyone, not even the counselor, not even my friend. I felt my hands go cold." "Why?" "Because I thought if no one knew," she said, "then I wouldn't have to explain myself. I wouldn't have to see disappointment on anyone's face." I closed my eyes. I imagined her alone in her room, staring at the ceiling, carrying a fear too big for her age. "There were nights," she continued, "when I sat on my bed and thought, maybe it would be easier if I just disappeared for a while." My chest tightened. "What do you mean, disappeared?" "I don't mean dying," she said quickly. "I mean running, leaving school, leaving everything, just going somewhere no one knew me." The relief I felt was small, but real. Still, the pain remained. "I didn't feel brave," she said. "I felt trapped." I listened carefully. I did not interrupt. This was not a moment for advice. This was a moment for truth. "I kept thinking about you," she said, "about how proud you were when I got into college, how you told everyone, how you looked at me like I was already something great." Her voice broke. I didn't want to be the reason that look changed. Tears rolled down my face, quiet ones, the kind you cry alone so no one hears. "I wish you had called me," I said softly. "I know, but fear is loud, Mom. It tells you lies. It tells you you're alone even when you're not." She told me then about the day she almost left school, how she packed a bag, how she sat on a bus bench for over an hour staring at her phone, not knowing where to go, how she almost called me. Almost. "What stopped you?" I asked. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I felt the baby move." I stopped breathing. "It was small," she said, "just a flutter, but it reminded me that this wasn't just about me anymore." That was the moment I understood how close I had come to losing her, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, completely. "I went back to my room," she said, "and I cried until I couldn't cry anymore." I pressed my hand to my chest. "I'm so glad you're here," I whispered. "Me too," she said. After that night, something shifted between us. The wall she had built started to crack, not fall completely, but crack enough to let light in. She asked me questions now, real questions, about life, about being a woman, about being a mother. Still, there was fear in her voice when we talked about the future. She was standing at the edge of something huge, and she did not know which way to step. And I knew then that the next choice she made would change everything. After that late-night call, I could hear a small change in her voice when we talked. She sounded less alone. Still scared, yes, but not trapped inside her own head anymore. She was letting me in, little by little, and I was grateful for every word she shared, even the painful ones. A few days later, she asked if we could talk longer. Not a quick check-in, not a rushed call between classes. A real talk. "I need to tell you what I've decided," she said. My heart started beating fast. I already knew this would be a moment we would both remember forever. "I'm listening," I said. She spoke slowly, like she was choosing each word with care. "I'm not leaving school right now," she said. "I looked into it. There are options. It won't be easy, but I want to try. I felt two feelings at the same time, pride and fear. Pride because she was strong enough to think about her future. Fear because I knew how hard that road would be. Okay, I said, we'll figure it out together. She let out a breath. I could tell she had been holding it in. There's more, she said. I waited. I don't want to hide anymore, she continued. I can't keep lying. It's eating me alive. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. You shouldn't have to. She told me she planned to tell the school, to ask for support, to speak to advisors, to stop pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. That alone took courage, the kind of courage you only find when you are exhausted from running. I'm scared people will judge me, she said. They might, I answered honestly, but they don't live your life. Then she said the words I was not ready for. I don't know if I'm ready to be a mom, she whispered. I felt my chest tighten again. This was the question behind every other question, the one she had been circling for months. I love the baby, she said quickly, like she needed me to know that. But love doesn't make you ready. She was right. Love alone is not enough. Readiness is built slowly through support, patience, and truth. I'm scared I'll mess everything up, she said, like I already have. You haven't messed everything up. Your life didn't end. It changed. There was a long pause. I could tell she was crying again. I wish I had told you sooner, she said. So do I admitted. But we're here now. She told me then about the pressure she felt from everyone around her. Opinions, advice she didn't ask for, people who spoke loudly without listening. She felt pulled in every direction, and all she wanted was one place where she could breathe. I need you, Mom, she said, not as a child, as a woman asking another woman for help. That broke me in the best way. I'm not going anywhere, I said. Not now, not ever. We talked about practical things after that. Housing, classes, health, money. Hard topics, but necessary ones. For the first time, she was not facing them alone, and neither was I. Still, there was tension, not between us, but around us. Family, expectations, the future. Some people would not understand. Some would judge. I knew that storm was coming. And I also knew something else. Our relationship had changed forever, not because of the pregnancy, but because of the silence that came before it. Silence leaves marks, even when love stays. The day I finally saw her again in person, I noticed how much she had grown, not just her body, her spirit. She looked tired, yes, but there was a calm in her eyes that had not been there before, the calm of someone who stopped running. We hugged for a long time, no rushing, no pretending, just two people holding on because they had almost lost something important. We sat at the kitchen table, the same place where this story quietly began for me. This time, there were no secrets on my phone, no fear in my chest, just honesty sitting between us. I should have trusted you, she said softly, and I should have listened better, I replied. We both smiled through tears. Life did not suddenly become easy after that. There were doctor visits, hard talks, plans that changed more than once. Some days were heavy, some nights were long. There were moments when she doubted herself again, and moments when I doubted myself too, but we faced them together. She told more people when she was ready. Some reacted with kindness, some did not. That hurt her, but she learned something important. Other people's opinions cannot raise a child or carry a future. Love does. I learned something too. I learned that children do not hide because they don't love us. They hide because they're scared of losing us. They hide because they think strength means silence, and sometimes, without meaning to, we teach them that. My daughter did not hide her pregnancy to hurt me. She hid it because she was afraid of disappointing the one person whose opinion mattered most. If I could go back, I would say this sooner, not just to her, but to every child who is listening somewhere right now. You do not have to be perfect to be loved. And if you're a parent listening, hear this gently. Ask the hard questions. Create space for messy truth. Let your children know that mistakes do not cancel love. Today, my daughter is still learning, still growing, still figuring out what kind of mother she wants to be. And I am learning too, learning how to step back without leaving, how to support without controlling, how to love without conditions. This story does not end with a neat bow. Real life rarely does. But it ends with something better. It ends with honesty. It ends with forgiveness. It ends with a bond that survived silence and came out stronger. If this story touched you, welcome to Stories Her Heart Holds. Subscribe to this channel and share where you're watching from. I want to know how far this story reaches. And if you're holding a secret right now, afraid to tell someone you love, remember this: love grows when truth is spoken, even when it is hard.